Hello everyone, this is Yoko. On this channel, I feel that information about what is happening in China is often not correctly conveyed to countries other than China, so I will be disseminating the information I have gathered in English. I'm getting information from multiple media, so I'd be happy if you could comment on the content of the video. Also, my native language is not English, so I use an AI speaker to create the voice to convey the information correctly. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel and support us. This time, I would like to talk about the deterioration of the Chinese economy. Recently, more and more Japanese media are reporting that the Chinese economy is in a slump. In fact, even before the coronavirus, there was a feeling that the Chinese economy was about to become dangerous, but the slump accelerated due to the coronavirus, and it has now reached its current state. The important point is that corona did not cause the Chinese economy to deteriorate. In the Chinese economy, when various problems had already become apparent, the problems were exacerbated by the arrival of the coronavirus. In other words, corona is not an essential problem, but the problem of the Chinese economy has existed for a long time. Therefore, it is not true that the Chinese economy will recover if the impact of the coronavirus disappears. This was the biggest theme of the year for those who have a good understanding of the actual situation in China and are collecting economic information. Until last year, China had implemented a zero coronavirus policy, but it lifted it this year. It seems that some people thought that if the zero corona situation was lifted, the Chinese economy would return to normal and the economy would return to good health. Since the beginning of this year, various economic indicators of the Chinese economy have clearly shown the deterioration of the Chinese economy. The numbers released from within China can be manipulated by the Chinese government, but the numbers that cannot be manipulated are trade. Trade-related figures are deteriorating, and China's domestic economic indicators, which are probably overstated, are also deteriorating across the board. It's not just the economy, it's also affecting people's lives due to the rising unemployment rate among young people. So, by stopping zero corona, there is a conclusion about what will happen to the Chinese economy. In other words, the Chinese economy will not recover even if the zero corona is stopped, and the possibility of further deterioration in the future has increased. Under such circumstances, I will think about what could happen in China in the future. Until a few years ago, the economy in China was very good, and the consumption of Chinese people was amazing. For example, I think there were stories about people coming to Japan and buying wobbly, or about a Chinese drinking the world's most expensive whiskey. However, such an episode is different from the story that shows the strength of the Chinese economy. It's a story about people who come to Japan and buy a lot of rice cookers. There is no point in having multiple rice cookers in your home. I bought in bulk with the intention of reselling. If you buy it for the purpose of resale, there will be a tax problem, so you buy it as a souvenir. When people from really economically rich countries enjoy traveling abroad, they don't buy a lot of home appliances. I don't buy cosmetics in bulk and pack them in my trunk case. There are some people who buy in Japan where they can feel safe because there are a lot of fakes in China and they can't buy the real thing, but it's a minority. Chinese people who come to Japan and buy explosives say they are rich, but their behavior is the same as that of traders. There is a difference between the amount a company buys and the amount an individual buys. Even now, the average annual income of Chinese people is lower than that of Japanese people. However, I think that the Chinese have a stronger desire to consume. It is said that this is because the wealth of the Chinese increased year by year. China was in the midst of the real estate bubble, so the price of the apartment I bought a few years ago was steadily rising, so my assets increased considerably. This is called the wealth effect, and it is said that the more wealth a person has, the greater their willingness to spend, even if they have the same income. Even if you spend this money now, you will think that it is okay because you have a lot of assets, and you will be conscious of spending a lot of money. As a result, there used to be a virtuous cycle in which various products sold in the Chinese economy grew further. However, from now on, the reverse rotation will start. Chinese people don't earn that much. There are a lot of Chinese people, so the income disparity is very large. If you search by annual income of Chinese people, the average annual income in Japanese yen will be 1.1 million yen to 1.3 million yen. Monthly income is about 100,000 yen. No matter how much Chinese people buy explosively, they can't spend more than their annual income. However, one of the reasons why I had the impression that they were consuming more and more than Japanese people is because of the wealth effect I mentioned earlier. The assets of the Chinese people were steadily increasing, so I became overwhelmed and began to consume more and more. And the other thing is that I have a different way of thinking about debt. Many Japanese people basically dislike debt. Home loans and car loans are common, but interest rates are high for credit card revolving payments. Therefore, many people think that it is unreasonable to pay such a high interest rate. However, in China, there are many people who borrow and consume more and more. This is confidence in the future. Many people thought that even if they borrowed money now, they would be able to earn more money in the future, so it would be all right. However, the Chinese economy has not grown any further, and the price of real estate, which had been rising until now, is falling. When that happens, the negative wealth effect occurs, and a negative spiral begins. If the assets you own are getting smaller and smaller, it will have a negative impact on consumption. I used to buy and eat expensive things, but now I'm trying to save money, and I don't feel like borrowing money to spend. As a result, the things that used to sell will no longer sell. When things stop selling, the economy gets even worse. So falling real estate prices in China is not just a problem for the real estate sector. This is also a problem for banks lending money to the real estate sector, but it will have far-reaching negative consequences. That is the negative chain that is happening in China. In such a society, the people who are said to be the middle class will disappear rather than the whole nation will become poor. There will be a polarizing phenomenon between the wealthy, whose money is increasing regardless of the economy, and the poor, who are not. In other words, in any country, the rich do not work for themselves and get high salaries. These are the people who have a system in which money comes in even if they do not work. Such people will be safe even if the economy deteriorates and people's lives will become difficult, and on the contrary, their position will become stronger. People who work and earn money receive money according to their work, no matter how high their annual income is, so they will be affected when the economy worsens. Such people will not be treated very well in China in the future. As a result, the disparity is widening within China, and the people in a dominant position in China are the upper echelons of the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, the upper echelons of the bureaucracy. This is the history of China itself. In China, the history is often that the emperor is at the top, but it is the bureaucrats who have actually ruled the country. These people are safe because they are in a system that rules. For example, even if the business is doing well, once it reaches a certain scale, the ruling class will take advantage of it. It is a regular pattern in China's history that once the exploitation of domination has passed, popular dissatisfaction will explode and lead to regime change. Going forward, I believe that China will become polarized, although it will take some time. If that happens, the domestic security situation will worsen, and the number of people who cannot live a decent life will increase. I think there will be more cases of gangs forming gangs and committing illegal acts. So I think that it will become very costly to maintain public order in the country. Even now, we are using our budget to maintain domestic security, but I think that in the future we will be in a situation where we cannot maintain order without spending more money. Doing business in China is going to be extremely difficult, so in the future it will be better to actively engage with emerging countries other than China to avoid political risks. I don't think we should stick to China in the future, instead of being bound by the conventional wisdom that China can do big business because it's big. That's all for now. See you next time.